They want to
Look
get
at
back.
Syria, look at Afghanistan.
They would love to have a military base in Central Asia again. I remember I actually saw the American military base in Kyrgyzstan. And it was crazy at the time. In the beginning of the 2000s, the American military base was very close to the Russian military base. And then the Kyrgyz finally expelled the Americans. Took a while. But, sorry, at least they managed to. So obviously they would love to have a base, especially in a more fragile nation like Kyrgyzstan. Tajikistan, forget it, because there's a huge Russian base in Tajikistan that, in fact, oversees everything that is happening in Tajikistan. Kazakhstan, I wonder what sort of carrots they could offer Tokayev to have an American military base over there. But obviously the SCO as a whole will say no. Will be an SCO decision, and China will be part of the decision. No way we're going to have an American military base right next to us, especially because the most important transit point of the Belt and Road, even more important than China-Pakistan, is the Kyrgyz port, dry ports on the border between China and Kazakhstan. They have 3 different customs. Everything goes through there. Highways, passengers, and of course the trains. Very, very important. Which is something that I didn't manage to see in my visit to Xinjiang. This is going to be part of our second documentary, because we have an idea of doing the next documentary on essentially Xinjiang as the Belt and Road interconnector. This one was more cultural and was more about Xinjiang in the Silk Roads. But I don't know if I think I told somebody already that when I went to Urumqi to say, okay, let's go to see where the trains leave to go everywhere on Belt and Road. Was a terrible timing problem, because we arrived there at 11 at night. Everything was dark. The station was closed. There was one guy at the door. He said, no, all the trains left. They leave during the day. And we said, oh, man, okay, next time we have to think about it before. And then when we were leaving the station, one of the cargo trains, was on a crossroads right in front of us, But he was probably going only to the border or back. He was not crossing to Europe. It was not one of those big cargoes that come from central China or from eastern China, stop in Urumqi, stop at Kyrgyz, and then they go all the way to Europe. Many of them. They can go to Rotterdam. They can go to Madrid. So. A military base in Kazakhstan is out of the question. But they will never stop dreaming about it. We know that.
Pepe, when it comes to Venezuela, I really believe that the United States, if they want some sort of partnership, they want to buy Venezuela's oil, they're going to sell it to the United States. And even looking at Russia, China, and Iran today, if the United States is really serious about diplomacy, they can talk with these countries. But the problem is that the plan is not what they're pretending to be, because here is the question, Pepe, in my opinion. The main question for these countries would be, is the United States returning to a 19th century mindset, recolonizing influence zones instead of building real partnerships?
Yes, of course. No question. The Monroe Doctrine is the best example. And coming back to the discussion of these past few weeks, including the discussion we already had, the frustration, the rage, the impotence, and the resentment by Trump 2.0, the whole combo Trump himself, of course, and the elites behind him, they don't have what it takes, and they don't have the cards to face Russia and China at the same time, not to mention face the Russia-China strategic partnership. So their plan B is to unleash their fury everywhere, or their seduction strategies, just like that dinner with the Central Asians. It's essentially desperation. And of course, in the case of Iran, is still very, very dangerous. There's no question. It's no wonder that the Iranians are preparing no holds barred for. They know that a war, we cannot say will come, but most probably will come. And they want to be ready because they look at the chessboard and they look at especially the sound and fury of the empire. And the empire is wounded. There are not many places that they can do like a shock and awe in Iraq in 2003 and just go there, bomb it, and annex it. And Iran is not Iraq. We all know that. You know, this is one of the truisms of the 21st century. So it's tough. And one element, Nima, which I almost lost my sleep this past few days. All of us. Well, we were not fooled because we were following. But every time that we talked about it and we said that this was a monumental scam and there was never any war on terror, it was a war of terror against a fabricated enemy, and Al-Qaeda was a joke, was an invention, was totally fake. Obviously, we were cut off, all of us who did that. Well, I never stopped doing it. And now we have the graphic confirmation that everything that we were saying for over 20 years was true. You have the former emir of ISIS in Idlibistan, former Al-Qaeda in Syria #1 operative, former head shopper, former killer, received in the White House as a tough guy. I like him, said the President of the United States, and giving his marching orders of what he has to do in Syria to facilitate the expansion of the Zionist entity. So this it's the only thing you need to completely destroy the whole fabrication of the war on terror. Ever since Dick Cheney proclaimed it on September 11 itself. It was Dick Cheney that proclaimed the war on terror. It was not W. This was a Dick Cheney invention. This was a neocon invention. And this was a neocon invention based on the discussions of neocons with what else? The death cult in West Asia. And now we have the graphic proof of everything, so. And okay, maybe they saw that they were fooling the whole planet. No, they were not. Most of the planet already knew that. Now those who were still defending the war on terror from the beginning, that's it, finished. Al-Qaeda are us literally from the beginning, from the construction that they came up with in Peshawar in 1980. So this, we have reasons to be very, very pissed about that. And of course, not to mention the zillions of lethal victims of this war on terror. All the people that were killed. The trillions of dollars spent, we don't care. It's part of the American treasury. It's money that they will never see. Just like that famous, how much was it? $2.3 trillion, if I'm not mistaken, that Rumsfeld was ready to audit. He wanted to know where that money had gone. And guess what? The office that was preparing the audit was hit on 9/11. So, it's too much. It's too much. And they treated the whole planet as idiots, assuming that everybody would buy this fabrication. Well, as much as nobody bought the fabrications in Afghanistan, and it took them exactly 20 years to replace the Taliban with the Taliban, it took them over 20 years to replace Al-Qaeda with Al-Qaeda going to the White House. I know it sounds like a completely implausible Netflix series, but no, this is real life. And in our case, it's even worse because we were deep into it. I spent years of my life covering the war on terror. I wrote books about it. I even had bloody Osama bin Laden set phone number in Pakistan that we used to call every day. You see how Osama is going to pick up today, And all that for nothing. Apart from the zillions of dollars and all those people from the lands of Islam killed everywhere. Yeah, well, I know geopolitics is really hardcore, Nima. We all know that, but sometimes it goes, it goes beyond anything. I wouldn't say acceptable, but plausible or making sense. This is beyond nonsensical, and for nothing, and absolutely for nothing. The only reason for the war on terror, now we know what it is to protect and to facilitate the expansion of the Zionist entity. There was never anything beyond that. Never.
Pepe, I think Al-Jolani, when we look at him and his movement, his policies, you see the Turkish intelligence, some sort of cooperation between the Turkish intelligence and the Western intelligence. I'm talking about
MIT, Turkish MIT, Mossad, and CIA MI6. Absolutely. Yeah. That's it. He's an agent, a lowly agent who got very lucky. Can you imagine? You have a whole country falling on your lap, and you don't even have to do anything. You just release a bunch of stupid Idlibistan guerrillas. They arrive in Aleppo, they take over Aleppo, and then they look, okay, we can keep on going. There's nothing. There's no resistance. And in 1 week, they take over the whole country. A miracle. Well, of course, Syria was strangled, was destroyed, no morale, no money for the soldiers, the typical generals who went to the other side. You name it. It was very, very easy in the end. We can never forget, was 13 years of sanctions. This destroys any country. It didn't destroy Iran, but Iran is another story. Yeah. And Iran has a serious political system. It has a leader. It has solid institutions. 40-something years of sanctions, and another 40 would never destroy Iran. But Syria was so easy.
And Iran and Russia they have helped a lot Syria and the situation a lot.
But it was not enough.
But it wasn't enough. Yeah, exactly. Here is, Pepe, what Robert Ford, the U.S. diplomat, said about rebranding Al-Jolani and how they have prepared him. Here is what he said.
Yes, absolutely.
Starting in 2023, a British non-government organization which specializes in conflict resolution invited me to help them bring this guy out of the terrorist world and into regular politics. And at first, I have to tell you, I was very leery of going. I sort of had images of me in an orange jumpsuit with a knife to my throat. But after talking to several people who had gone in, and one of whom had met him, I decided to take the chance. And so the first time I met him, this guy's name is nom de guerre was Abdulkader Jolani, but his actual name is Ahmed Shara, which he only revealed to the world after he captured Damascus in the Blitzkrieg of December 2024, about 5 months ago. First time I met him, I sat down next to him, and I'm literally as close as I am to Roy, and I said, this is all in Arabic, I said, never in a million years could I imagine that I would be sitting next to you.
Yeah, he's not just sitting next to you. He was in Washington talking with Donald
He
Trump.
was playing basketball with the generals, and he was being told by the president of the United States, "You're a tough guy, and you're so cool."
You know what's connecting, Pepe, the case of Ukraine and the case of the Middle East is the British intelligence.
Of course. Well,
Why do they need? I think the people in Russia and Iran, even in China, they have to think about the United Kingdom. What is their role? Because he didn't say CIA called him. He said MI6 called him.
No, exactly. Well, the Brits are still good for something, Nima, and that's covert ops. Nobody beats them on covert ops, assuming they stay covert. Sometimes the Russians discover their covert ops, but the Brits are very good at that. They have been doing this since the times of the British Empire, for that matter. So these people that they breed and psychologically create a terrorist persona for them, but they always leave a space in the back of their psyches for the day that they were going to turn around or be turned around. This is exactly what happened with Jolani. Jolani was playing the role of the head shopper terrorist very, very well. But perhaps in his indoctrination, he knew that if he was successful enough, they would turn him around and he would be instantly acceptable, which is exactly what happened. From one day to another, he was normalized by the whole collective West. And the visit to the White House is the cherry on top, you know. But this is, I'm sure all of you, our audience, you are familiar with those. There were a lot of cables revealed by WikiLeaks, including that famous Jake Sullivan to Hillary Clinton cable, when he says, here, Al-Qaeda is with us. Well, everybody knew it. Everybody knew it. And when we were in Iraq in the 2000s, we all knew that Al-Qaeda in Iraq was invented literally at Camp Bucca, southern Iraq, close to the Kuwaiti border, by the Americans. They put Takfiris, ultra-radical Salafi jihadis, and Saddam colonels, captains, and operatives, and high-ranking soldiers in the same camp. So they would fraternize and come up with interesting ideas. One of them was Al-Qaeda in Iraq, which later turned into ISIS. So this was another American fabrication. They instigated and they coordinated not only this fabrication of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, but the spin-offs. ISIS is a spin-off, essentially. So the Americans learned all that from whom? The Brits. Once again.
They have tried to hijack one of the Russians' fighter jets, MiG.
Absolutely.
31, if I'm not mistaken.
They wanted to hijack a MiG-31 with a Kinzhal. Yeah, which was carrying a Kinzhal. So this is what they do. Is that they are incapable of fighting a real war. They'll be decimated in a matter of seconds. But covert ops is it's their specialty, and that makes them very, very dangerous. And makes them dangerous in, once I'm coming back, Central Asia. We know there are MI6 in Tajikistan. We know there are MI6 still infiltrated in Afghanistan. We know there are MI6, especially around the Fergana Valley, which something that they might instill some sort of preamble of another color revolution, for instance, in Kyrgyzstan, or from Kyrgyzstan to Kazakhstan. For instance, the attempt of color revolution in Kazakhstan, they assembled and they were regimented in Kyrgyzstan. And then they crossed the border. They crossed the border to Almaty. Almaty is very, very close to Kyrgyzstan. So this is extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. And of course, they are helping Al-Qaeda in the Sahel. The French as well. The French were helping a lot. This Al-Qaeda push to try to destabilize Mali, typical covert ops, MI6 style, with help from the French, with French intelligence. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, especially now, Nima, where the options for the collective West are dwindling by the minute. In fact, they have no options left. Their whole economies are going to collapse. They are all indebted. Their populations are furious with all those leaders. And of course, the big thing, the looming strategic defeat, no holds barred, in the black soil of Novorossiya.
Pepe, your second article, let's talk about the real world, which is happening in China.
The real world, okay.
Yeah. And in your opinion, can Huawei EUV, breakthrough truly end ASML's global monopoly? And will geopolitical restrictions still limit its impact?
This is an absolutely outstanding story. Well, we started to get echoes about it already a few months ago. When I was in Shanghai a few months ago, I started to hear that, Huawei is up to something really, really big. And then a few days ago, a few weeks ago, more echoes. And then a few days ago, there was this breakthrough effect. Yes, they are working on their own EUV system, which is the physics and the technology is very different from ASML. Cheaper, faster, much more simple, Chinese style, of course. What is this? It's the result of tons of investment in research and development. It's what it's the first part of my column. This column is not published yet. It's going to come out on Sputnik International in Moscow between today and tomorrow, probably tomorrow. And it's a technical column. Basically, I chose 4 vectors that show how this new innovation drive in China is something that is, in fact, for the West is incomprehensible. How fast and how much research and development and concerted, organized interaction between public, private, academia, tech, the best brains coming out, best brains from the best universities, you name it, research centers, you name it. So they are going everywhere on, it's amazing. It's, I tend to see it as the culmination of the Made in China 2025 project. Don't forget, it's now 2025. They are already 7 or 8 of the high-tech fields. They're already leaders. And there are 2 that they are not. One of them is semiconductors. And AI, it's more or less with the US, is more or less, neck and neck. So they are aiming for these 2 mega breakthroughs on AI and on semiconductors. So if we have them, can you imagine their own lithograph machines developed by Huawei, produced in China, capable of producing 3-nanometer chips, indigenous. No need to rely on foreign chips anymore. And starting next year, 2026, man, this turns the whole thing upside down. And this adds an extra echo to the desperation of Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA. Jensen is a very, very clever guy. He understood the story months ago, even before the tsunami of the new tsunami of Trump 2.0 sanctions, because he understood that not only he would lose the Chinese market, which by all practical purposes, he already lost it. But the Chinese would eventually go beyond NVIDIA and beyond the American semiconductor industry, which is something that is not going to happen in 2 or 3 years. It might even happen next year. So this is mind-bogglingly game-changing, really, really. And you understand why. You understand when you understand how Huawei functions. Their research, especially that mega research center in Dongguan, the new one, and how much they invest in research and development, how much patents they register a year, way beyond the Americans and the Europeans and all that. That's it. Investment, hard work, and planning. There you go. And they're hitting the next stage, which is non-stop innovation. And the way they are thinking from the top down, but including the mega companies, everything together, it's organic. It's the Chinese ministries. It comes, of course, from the top with the Chinese ministries, a ministry of technology and all that, scientific bodies, academia, and those mega companies like Huawei to integrate artificial intelligence in every nook and cranny of the Chinese economy, which is something that we already, when we travel in China nowadays, we already see glimpses here and there. How is it becoming a completely automated society in virtually no time? It's immensely impressive. Okay, ideologically or in humanistic terms, whatever you want to put it, the discussion is later on. What is fascinating to watch at the moment is the process and how fast the whole thing is developing. I think when I was talking about Xinjiang with you, I talked about electrification in Xinjiang everywhere. The whole of Xinjiang is electrified, literally. The wind turbines everywhere, the solar panels everywhere, the solar farms irradiating light for, more than 100 kilometers, 150 kilometers. It's very, very impressive. And they are exporting cheap energy to the rest of China. So the energy hub of China is Xinjiang. So the central government looks at that and said, fantastic, we have a lot of cheap energy. So let's use this cheap energy to power our new systems, which are super energy consuming compared to the Western ones. And that's the key of this directive, Nima, which came only a few days ago. They ordered every data center linked to the state in China not to use foreign chips, only Chinese chips, which, of course, the systems like the Huawei system consumes much more energy. That's not a problem because they have lots of energy everywhere. It's amazing. So you can see how they think globally. Yeah. They think in terms of developing what they still don't have. They think in terms of what we developed before, which was Xinjiang energy capacity and exporting domestically energy capacity as well. Let's harness that to our next stage of innovation. It's very, very impressive. You can only do that in a society where we have 5-year plans. There's no other way. And when you discuss the 5-year plans, you have contributions from the grassroots, from provincial governments, from regional governments, from academic institutions everywhere. This goes up, 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 gets to the 4 days of deliberation that they had in Beijing last month. They are refining it. And when it gets to the 2 sessions in March next year, everything is there. They approve it, and that's it. Now you have to implement all that. You have the targets. You have to fulfill all the tasks and all the targets. And if you don't, bye-bye. You're out. It's meritocratic. There's no mystery, no? There's no mystery.
Pepe, you remember Donald Trump was talking about the clean energy and solar panels. He said it's a scam by China. They want us to buy them. But looking at China today, you see that China's clean energy expansion is reshaping its geopolitical leverage over fossil fuel dependent nations. They see way beyond what the United States is talking about.
But the United States, they don't see anything, Nima. They cannot, it's not a productive economy. It's financialization. That's why at the end of the column, I entered some observations by one of those wonderful old school Hong Kong tycoons. These guys, some of them are great. And I am familiar with a few of them when I lived in Hong Kong. And they've seen everything. They know how the system works in the West and in China, because Hong Kong is a mix of both and all that. And they can say something, they can formulate these things in 2 or 3 sentences. Of course, China works because it has a very diligent and well-educated population. They work very, very hard. They follow planning, and it's a productive economy. There's no financialization. If you are a productive economy, which means real capitalism, of course you're going to thrive. There's no mystery. There's no mystery about that. The United States today is basically Wall Street. And of course, Silicon Valley, or Silicon Valley in Wall Street, which is the same thing, speculation. There's nothing productive coming out of it. And it's not going to, even worse, Nima, it's not going to change.
No. What is the story behind the Dragon Dome, Pepe?
Well, it's complex because it's being tested. And it's this outstanding Nanjing Institute of the official name is Nanjing Institute of Applied Electronics and Engineering. It's one of the ultra high-tech hubs of state-of-the-art study in radars, for instance. And they were already working on a Chinese version, which we can call it Dragon Dome, even before Trump announced the non-existent American Golden Dome. And they want to, they are doing the interaction between their platform with interceptor missiles. So they have the mega hardware of tracking missiles from everywhere, anywhere, old, new, coming at different speeds, over at 1,000 according to the platform. And then you have to integrate this with Chinese-made interceptor missiles. And then you build your dome. So that's where the Chinese are, right? It's a different process compared to the Russians. The Russians have the best, the S-400s and S-500s. These are the best interceptors in the world. The Chinese are working on their own, but they are working on, at the same time, on a dome to protect China. So it's a work in progress. right? But the fact that they are already advancing very, very fast, and the guy who's supervising this at the Nanjing Technology University, he said, look, we are testing. There will be many more tests, but it's already on.
Yeah. The other point before wrapping up, Pepe, is that the Chinese model of economy, which is somehow fascinating, you compare it with the US and with the West, which is, it's a market-driven approach, and it's all about, as you've mentioned. And is there any sort of sign that in the West, they're studying, they're learning from China, or the main goal would be confrontation without knowing the phenomenon, the basics in China? Because if you want, even fighting, if you consider China as an enemy and you want to fight them, you have to know how does it work. You have to know the details of their economy. Do you see that sort of wisdom in the West to understand China?
Well, the Americans don't know anything about Sun Tzu, who says, okay, first you have to know yourself. Then you know if you don't know yourself and you know the enemy, you don't know anything. You have to know yourself, and if you know yourself, you know the enemy, and then everything together. No, it's the logic of containment in their own terminology, right? It's a logic of confrontation. It's what the Chinese call, I would say very politely, Cold War mentality. And of course, now it's even worse because it's a confrontation of models. The Chinese are proving to the world that their model is superior to the American model. We're not going to get into this absolutely stupid discussion about democracy versus autocracy, because there's no democracy in the West or in the US or in the West to start with. Oligarchies control everything, including who will be elected or not. And China is not a democracy. China is a meritocracy. It's a completely different story. If they were not meritocratic, they would not have achieved what they achieved essentially for the past 25, 30 years, especially. The bulk of their super drive was since the late 90s, and especially the past 25 years. And after they entered the WTO. So this means the past 25 years. It has to be a meritocratic system. Of course, internal problems, there are purges, there are people who are prosecuted for corruption, but the system as a whole it has to be meritocratic because they have to deliver. And to deliver, their social contract is not, we're going to make you rich. Their social contract is, we're going to have a moderately prosperous society. Everybody's going to have enough, very modernized and organic, and everybody as a citizen has to participate and has his own input for the benefit of society as a whole, not to a determined caste like in the West, or the less than 1%, the oligarchic less than 1%. And of course, a project of a national project. If the official terminology describes it as rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, it is rejuvenation in a sense that it was becoming decrepit decades ago. So it is a rejuvenation. And when you compare to the late 19th and early 20th century, it's definitely a rejuvenation. And of course, this new sense that we see, it was great to see this on the road when I was in Gansu province, when I was in Xi'an, and when I was in Xinjiang, in September. In little details, you see this new self-confidence, this sense of national pride. And finally, they are enjoying themselves as Chinese in their own land. and they don't need anything from abroad that they don't have. They have most of what they need. In fact, practically everything that they need. And the way the country is being modernized at breakneck speed, all that is very, very impressive. So you cannot achieve all that in casino capitalism terms. Of course not.
Yeah.
There you go. There's no mystery, Nima.
No.
There's no mystery. It's production. No, it's a real economy, production, hard work, and planning.
And they don't care about GDP.
No, these numbers are not very important. 5%, 4.9%. That's not a big deal. Can you imagine a country the size of China still growing at almost 5% a year? It's gigantic.
Exactly.
It is in itself is gigantic. And the most important thing is regions. For instance, I was told in Xinjiang that Xinjiang is growing at least 8% a year.
Oh.
There you go. And you see the results.